Welcome. My name is Beri Meric. I'm co-founder and CEO at Ivy and the chapter chair of YPO Metro New York. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce all of you to Aron Ain. Aron, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you here. And I want to just say a huge welcome to everyone for joining us all across the world for this critical, profound, and what will be a very dynamic discussion on how we can each build an organization where every single person loves to work. Aron is truly an ideal guide for this particular conversation. He is the CEO and chairman of the ultimate Kronos Group, which is one of the world's most innovative human capital management and workforce management companies. He's been named Glassdoor's top CEOs list, on the very top of that list, multiple years in a row, and he's regarded as a pioneer in workforce management. Kronos and Ultimate Software merged recently, and the organization that Aron leads today is made up of more than 12,000 employees with more than $3 billion in revenue. But what's most important is that it keeps winning awards and being recognized for what an incredible place it is to work in. So as leaders kicking off a new year all together, not only do we want the best for our own lives and do things differently and better this year, we also want to elevate our respective organizations. And Aron is going to be guiding us on how we can do that just a bit better by implementing certain key actionable insights. So Aron, welcome once again. A pleasure to have you here. I want to kick off by asking you about the book that you published after your decades building a great organization. The book is called WorkInspired, How to Build an Organization Where Everyone Works. Tell us what led you to actually crystallize all of your learnings in this work.
Thanks, Barry. So first of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone who took time out of their busy schedules to join us today, particularly in a morning when there's lots of distractions. So thank you for that. Maybe this will be a positive distraction, hopefully. Look, writing a book was not on my bucket list. And when people first approached me to write the book, my initial reaction was, who would want to read a book written by me? I mean, I wouldn't want to read a book written by me. But then as I reflected on why people were suggesting it to me, as I talked on a regular basis about these tools that I've learned and that we put to work about how to create an environment where people love to work, I don't know, I guess I became a little bit more convinced that it was a story worth sharing as I watched people inside the company and outside the company react to it. And as I got better at practicing those things and talking about those things. So I really believe it's super important. And I had a story I wanted to tell and I wanted to share it. And that's really what drove me to do it.
Excellent. So to kind of build on that vision you had for the book, the vision you have for your company that you've infused these ideals, if all of us really studied this, committed to it, if we all applied some of these same practices in our own ways, what would that world look like? Is it possible a world full of companies where a vast majority of people are super happy to go to work? Do you believe that's something that's attainable?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And, it all starts with the people. It all starts with the people. And I think oftentimes as leaders or businesses in general are focused more often, not too often, but more often on making sure we have great products. And by the way, we have to have great products, or making sure we deliver great service. And by the way, we have to deliver great service, or making sure that our financials are good and our balance sheet is good so we can invest in the business and protect the business. And we have to do that as well, and other things like that. But I don't think we always understand that soft part of making that happen is by having great people. And so I think if you're a company from 5 people or 500,000 people, if you want to have great outcomes, then start by focusing on having engaged people who will be the people who produce these great products and deliver this great service.
Absolutely. And both because of good intentions, but also out of self-interest. I mean, it's clear that organizational leaders should want to create this environment, but somehow, some way, it seems to be really difficult. If you mention the word culture, many CEOs will be like, oh my goodness, how do I actually get better? Or, there's always things that we wish were a lot better. So before we dive into the frameworks you've developed, the best practices you've developed, share with us what are the biggest mistakes that organizational leaders make, even with the best of intentions or the best of products and best of, kind of raw material. Where do they get it wrong most often? You already mentioned one, which is they just don't prioritize it the way they would maybe their financials and so forth. But what are the recurring themes and the mistakes that people make?
Look, there's components about how to go create, you called it a great culture. I would call it being an engaged place to work. And I think that we don't always understand that we want to hire great people and we want to retain great people so they can do those great products, great service, but we don't always understand that great people have choices. Great people have choices where they can work. And if you don't create this focused, great environment where they can be engaged and happy, they will do what great people can do. They'll leave because they have choices. If you don't want to have this problem, then go hire all mediocre people. Average people don't have as many choices. We don't choose to do that. We choose to hire above average people, but what comes with that is this need, not an obligation, a need to go create an engaged environment to keep them there and keep them motivated and happy.
Excellent. So if you want to have a great organization, you need the great people. And if you want to have the great people and keep them, you got to have this great engaging environment, as you called it. So
I believe that. That's right.
So if you zoomed all the way out, right, and you had to narrow it down to the smallest number of key ingredients for creating an organization where everybody loves to work, what would you say are those key ingredients, just at a bird's eye level?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is trust. I believe trust is the magic glue that holds together personal relationships and holds together professional relationships. And I don't believe we practice it enough. So trust is one thing. We can talk about it more if you would like, but I think it's the most important thing. I think communicating, over communicating, actively sharing what's going on with people, being transparent, honesty, all those things. So that whole area of communications, I think, is very important. People do better when they know what's going on. People do better when they know you're being honest with them. I think the idea that people join organizations because of the organizations, but they leave because of who they work for. They join organizations because of the organization, but they leave because of who they work for. Everyone deserves a great manager, but more than they deserve a great manager, if they don't have a great manager, they will leave. They will leave because they, number one, great people can, and nobody likes to work in that kind of an environment. So those are three ideas. Look, I also believe we have obligations as leaders to go create an environment that's safe. I think we have an obligation where we need to respect people's personal time, family time, what their own needs are. I don't think we own people's careers. So I think there's an aspect of that just basic respect for people. I think those, I can go on, but those are some of the key ones.
All right, excellent. So trust, communication, great manager, safety, and respect. Those are the key ones that came out when you gave us the key ingredients. I'd love to take them in turn and really zero in on how we can move the needle on each one. So no matter where we may be on the spectrum, let's say with the trust one, whether our organization has pretty good trust or not at all good, regardless, we want to learn from you and get your guidance on how can we increase each of these. So let's start with trust. Yep. What have you found to be the most critical specific practices to implement as the leader yourself and also organizationally in terms of the environment?
Yep. So look, it's a simple yet complex idea and how it translates. I get a kick out of it sometimes when I'm in a meeting and I watch a manager with one of the people on their team and how they're interacting with them. Sometimes I can tell they don't trust the person. And we've all seen this. And at the end of the meeting, I'll say, hey, Beri, can you hang for a sec? I just want to talk to you. And I'll say, yeah. And they go, hey, what's the deal with so-and-so and you? It's like, you don't appear to trust them. And they go, well, they just started. They have to earn my trust. And first thing I say to them is I say, well, I'm a little bit confused about that. Did you interview them when you hired them? Oh, yeah. And did you like them? Yeah. I go, well, I don't know. Did you say to yourself, I really like them, but I don't really trust them. Of course not. You hired them because you trusted them. So why can't you take the opposite approach and have them unearn your trust? Start by trusting people. Liberate yourself so you can go work on something else. Liberate them so that they can go feel that they don't have someone looking over their shoulder all of the time. We've all worked in environments. We've all worked in environments where we had people who we worked with who didn't trust us. How do you feel? How do you feel? How did you feel when that was happening to you? So as you as a leader, don't do that. Trust them. We also allows us to do things that are become amazing. Like for our company, we have an open vacation policy. People can take as much time off as they want. Imagine that. Imagine that. When our HR team first approached me with that, um, and said, have you ever thought about letting us have an open vacation policy? I said, I don't know what that is. Tell me what that is. Oh, people can take as much time off as they want. The first thing I thought about was I said, I'm going to be here all by myself. But then I researched it and understood it. And we did it initially to change our recruiting profile because other companies were doing it. But in the end, when we did it, first year we did it, after that year, we had the lowest turnover we ever had, the highest employee engagement we ever had, and the best results we ever had. And people say, well, how do you know it worked? Well, I said, I don't know. We had the best year we ever had. But my point about it isn't the open vacation. My point is we could not have done it if we did not trust each other. I trust people to get their work done. I care more about what they do than where they do it or when they do it. And that's trust. And so it gives us an advantage out there. And so there's lots of things you can do. If you don't trust each other, then you can't do all these other things. And so really critical, like I said, the magic glue that holds together personal relationships and professional relationships. And so, you know what's funny, I'll finally say about it? People come and say, hey, Aaron, can you help me with something? I go, sure. And they say, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? I say, I don't know. What do you think? And they'll go, well, I don't know. I go, well, you're closer to it. I trust you to make the decision. And I watch people get really uncomfortable. And so sometimes I physically move closer to them, not right in their personal space, but sometimes pretty close. And I say, no, 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 I trust you. And I watch them get even more uncomfortable. So I can tell it's not practiced as much as it used to be, as it needs to be. And it really makes a huge difference and big difference. And great people need to be trusted, want to be trusted. They'll do better. I want to be trusted. You want to be trusted. That we should treat other people the same way.
Excellent. So calling it out when you see an absence of trust and intervening, considering things like open vacation policies and so forth that reiterates trust. And then, yeah, asking people what they think, saying, I trust you. But tell us, Aaron, like, so you're an enlightened leader, right? You've proven yourself both, you know, from a performance perspective, as well as like the qualitative accolades of like building a great place to work. But it's not just about what you're doing, right? It's also about what other people are doing. So what do you do? Humans are complicated. You know, they distrust each other or get annoyed at each other for different reasons. What do you do as an organization on an ongoing basis to continuously strengthen that trust? Like, are there any practices, or is it just happening naturally because you hire?
No, sure practices. We talk about it, just like I'm talking to you about it right now. We train our people. Our leadership training program is called Courage to Lead. Courage to Lead. The action word is not lead. The action word is courage. Unbelievable courage to be a great leader. Unbelievable courage to be a great leader. And that includes trusting people. You have to, you know, take a step, open up yourself to do that. So we teach people about that. And then through our survey work, surveys of our managers we can talk about, other culture surveys, we ask the questions all the time around the area of trust. And so people know it's high on our list because we're talking about it often. And so people know it's an important ingredient. And then when you watch each other, you learn by watching and listening and from that point of view. So it's easier than you think it is. It's easier than you think it is once you start doing it. And I tell people that, like, give it a try. liberate yourself.
Yeah. Tell us briefly about this Courage to Lead leadership program that you have. How does it work? And a little more
Yep.
about the underlying principles.
Let me close my office door. The beauty of working from home with the dog when someone comes to the door. Um, I got a Jack Russell who's a maniac. And so as soon as someone comes close, you hear it. And so, look, we recognize that some people learn how to do things around leadership really quickly and they just pick it up by example, and other people need to be taught how to do it. And so we made the decision that it was important for us to create a program to teach the basic core principles of leadership to our people, because we want to hire and retain great people and they need to have a great manager to do that. So we tried to look at programs that were available outside, and we did take pieces of those, but generally speaking, we created our own program internally. And we thought carefully about the words, the title, Courage to Lead, and it has active, open conversations. Is it the only leadership training program? Of course not. Is it the best one? Probably not. But does it work for us? It does. And the reason courage is an important word and an important part of it. Look, Beri, none of us like to have conversations with people that are difficult to have. Who likes to do that? You're not doing well, you're not this, you're not that. The fact is that it takes unbelievable courage to do it. And we tell our people that it's going to take unbelievable courage for you to do these things. It's okay to feel uncomfortable with it. It's okay to struggle with that. But you got to have the courage to get better at it. You have to have the courage to grow in this area. And then we teach them the ideas about like trust we talked about, and communication we talked about, and respect that we talked about, those kind of things. And then we, give other basic skills, about how to run a meeting effectively or how to interview effectively. But those are the ones that most leadership training programs do a good job with: interviewing, running meetings. They don't focus enough on these trust, communications, collaboration, honesty, truth telling, that all make great managers.
Excellent. Love the framing is so powerful. Courage to lead, because it gives people that sense of, security, that like, it's supposed to be scary and but courage is a virtue we all aspire to, right? And you can only have courage in the face of challenge. I really love that.
And if you want to be a great leader, then I tell people it's an honor, a privilege. Oh my goodness, what a privilege to lead people. But if you want to lead people and the impact you have on them, then go do what you have to do, and including having the courage to change and grow.
Excellent. Love it. So segueing into the second key ingredient you'd mentioned, communication. Already just talking about trust, communication is such a huge part of it. You said you're constantly communicating about it, doing surveys, having these programs, getting people to constantly talk. Tell us a bit more about that communication and transparency. What other policies do you have, best practices? Also, you yourself, how do you handle communication? Where do you get most challenged, but do it anyway because it's so important?
Look, people, I believe, want to be in on things. They don't want to be kept in the dark. If you want to go get them engaged and fully in with you, then treat them accordingly. Now, towards that end, when I'm walking down the halls in my office, when I'm riding up the elevator with people who I work with, my head's up, my phone's in my pocket, I'm chit-chatting with people. How's it going? What's going on? How's work going? What are you working on? How's your family? I learn things, I want to over communicate. I want to see what's happening. When I have town halls, I always tell people things that they are surprised that I shared with them. They're surprised I shared with them. I do it's called Aron at Work vlogs, video blogs, like 6 to 10 minutes every other week. One take, stream of consciousness, what's on my mind. If I fall over in the middle, I get up and I just keep talking, because I tell them, I say, life is one take. Why should my videos be rehearsed and not one take. So every one of them is one take. Some of them are so funny over the years that I've had that people have, done with me where something happens and I just keep going. And I don't want to do that. That's not planned. But so the communications is about sharing what's happening, being open. Someone taught me a long time ago, gosh, a long time ago, so long ago, that they asked like 1,000 managers, what are the 10 most important things that employees care about? And of course, top of the list are things like pay. They asked 10,000 employees, what are the 10 most important things to you? And like pay was like number 6. But number 1, as I'll never forget, was being in on things, sharing things that people didn't expect you to share. So I share things all the time with people, share them. Now, I also share them in a transparent way. I also share them in an honest way. And by the way, I also share it in a way where I'm exposing myself. So like with COVID, what's been going on, I tell people on the videos, look, I'm worried. I know you're scared. I'm scared. It's okay. We got to figure out how to get through this together. I tell the people who work for me that I'm worried they're working too hard. This is a form of communication. And I say, you have my permission in the middle of the day to go take a nap, to go read a book, to go for a walk, go shoot baskets, go play a video game, but I care about your mental health and I care about your physical health. And again, it comes back to trust, by the way, because I care about what you do, not when you do it or where you do it from that perspective. And so got to talk about those things. And I get so much positive feedback about, gosh, thanks for being so transparent. Thanks for being so honest. Thanks for being so open. Then the magic is working, because then people will give you a break. They'll flow with you when things aren't going as well in a given period of time, etc. But you got to communicate. You can't live in a hole, particularly for those who are leaders. You got to communicate. I tell people silence is not an effective form of communications. It's just not. Well, what do you mean? I'm surprised they didn't know that. Well, I don't know. When did you tell them? Well, I didn't tell them, but they should have known. Well, how were they supposed to know? You're surprised? You can't even tell me when you told them. So I don't do that. I'm like over communicating all the time.
That's amazing. Go ahead.
And I think it's important. That's why I do it. I don't do it just because I like to chit chat. I do it because I think it's really important.
Absolutely. So I was just thinking a great exercise for everybody listening could be, the key things, Aron, you mentioned a lot of things there, but it all boiled down to, on the one hand, like, how open and transparent are you in terms of like people knowing what's really going on, right? 0 to 10, I'm sure we can all rate ourselves and, aspire to that 10 out of 10, but just knowing, okay, 0 to 10, where am I? And how could I be more open and transparent? And then the second piece is showing you care. Like, of course you care, but how actively are you showing that? Like 0 to 10, how do people really know? Have you really not just talked about it, but shown that you care? That could be a great way. I do want to also then zone in, Aron, on this 6 to 10 minute video blog you've been doing, okay? Because that seems like a pretty, important yet relatively painless, because if you're not doing double takes and you're not overthinking it, you're just going with the flow the way you would talk to them in the elevator. Share with us, like, if we wanted to do something like that, what's made it successful for you, for those who want to put their own spin on it and use it in their company?
Yeah, current, spontaneous. I really think about it the day I'm doing it, what's on my mind. I ask some people who are good ambassadors for me. They help me. Hey, what are you hearing? What do you think people would like to know? And then I just spend a little bit of time on various topics and just, again, not rehearse. If I did 2 in a row around the same topics, I would do them differently, because from that perspective. But I shared, like today, the one I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about how we finished our quarter in terms of our results. I'm certainly going to talk about what happened in Washington yesterday, because I know it's on people's minds, and just reflect about how I feel as a leader that we need to listen a little bit better. And We need to care and be kind. And if we do that as leaders, we can help lead our teams to brighter futures, about that type of thing. So that's on my mind right now, as an example. So I just kind of think about that particular day, what's there, as if I was having a conversation about it. I give shout outs sometimes to people or groups that did something particularly noteworthy. And I get notes back, thanks for giving a shout out to my group, or things like that. Little things, oh my goodness, little things go a long way. Yeah, so that's why I do it. I tried to do blogs years ago, Barry, and I couldn't get it done. I just couldn't get it done. And so this was, some people suggested we want to try a video blog, a vlog, I call it. I'm sure other people call it a vlog. I don't think that's my original name. So it works for me, and people really look forward to it. I get thousands of watches internally. We don't use it for external purposes.
Excellent. And you sit at your desk and have a camera right there?
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes I sit when I'm on vacation and I have my grandson holding him, or sometimes I do it outside of my backyard with my dog next to me, giving him treats so he'll stay there. Sometimes I do it at my desk. My wife videos is on the camera sometimes, my daughter, my son-in-law. Sometimes just doing it in my office because I'm by myself. No, I just do it that way. So everybody knows my family now because of that. They don't see them. Like I'll say, oh, the magnificent Susan Ain on the camera today, or got Sammy here with me. And one time I gave Sammy a smooch on the camera. I must have got 40 notes from dog lovers saying, I don't know you, but I love you already because of the way you treated your dog. That's not why I did it. He was sitting next to me and he was looking at me with those big eyes. And so I don't know, I just gave him a little smooch on the nose. And so what else do you do when you have a dog? So those are those moments when, not rehearsed. It's good.
Absolutely. So current, spontaneous, mix it up in terms of topics, shout outs, and the last thing, make it personal. This is really you, unfiltered, your family, your dog, everybody. Really love it. Thank you, Aaron. Um, Moving on. So we talked about openness, communication, trust. You said something about the great managers, like the importance of having those great leaders and managers, because people join for the organization but stay for the people they're reporting to. Above and beyond what you already told us that you do to cultivate great managers, anything else you would tell us for ensuring that the managers are both empowered but also have the correct mindset so that they can model a lot of what you bring to the table?
Really, really, really good question. Thank you. So managers, I think most people become managers, want to be great managers, but they don't always know how to. They don't always know how they're doing. Because most times with performance evaluations, who's judging you? Your boss is judging you. But how do the people who work for you really feel about you? And so what we do is twice a year, every manager is evaluated by a survey of 18, 19 questions that are asked directly about your manager. Does your manager do this? Does your manager do that? How does your manager do with this? How does your manager do with that? Every manager then gets those results back, and every manager at our company has an MEI, a Manager Effectiveness Index, MEI. And so they know how they're doing with that. And if you're in the fourth quartile, you got to do better. You got to move up. And when we first started it, we didn't share the results with the manager's manager because we said, this is not to punish you. We just want you to see how the people who work for you are rating you. And then we said, but after that, we're going to judge you not on what it was now, but how you improve from where it is now. And there's stories about this where people who were managers thought they were good managers because the engagement of the people on their team was high. Because why is that if you're not a good manager, yet their MEI came out low? Because traditional employee engagement surveys measure the relationship between the employee and the company, between the employee and the organization. Is your pay good? Do you like your benefits? Do you know the strategy? Do you have the tools to do your job? You know, those kind of things. They don't talk about, does your manager care about you? Does your manager know what your goals and ambitions are? Does your manager actively communicate with you how you're doing? Those type of things. And so we have people who thought they were great managers until they got their first MEI back and they were in the fourth quartile of the company. And they were really disappointed because they really had the impression they were really great managers, but they didn't know that their employees didn't feel that way. And they got better once they had these tools. So that's a big part of what we do, is finding out this. I call it exposing reality. So we all have a view of what reality is, but how do we truly expose what the reality is? And this is a form of being able to do that. I don't want to try to solve a problem that I think is a problem. I want to solve the problem that is the problem.
Yeah, I love the exposing reality mindset. So share with us specifically this manager effectiveness index, MEI. Did you come up with that? Is there any?
No, we came up with it. Yep. Yep. And so, you know, this was we started in the days when people were going away from performance reviews. And I heard someone speak who was the head of HR at a 70,000 employee US company. And they explained how they had moved away from annual performance reviews and they went to quarterly reviews, and they had managers answer 4 questions about their employees on their team. Like, if you could hire Beri again, would you, yes or no? Holy macaroni. That's a provocative question. Black and white. So I ran up after the room and I said, hey, do you ever do that the other way? Do you ever have 4 questions that you ask all the employees on a manager's team? If I could go to work for this manager again, would I? Yes or no? Wow, that's a provocative question. And so my HR team came and said, and the person said, no, we don't do that. So I came back and I said, I want to do this 4 questions, really simple. And they said, but Aron, if we ask that, we won't get to the bottom of why they won't want to work for them again. So they convinced me to do questions that got into more depth of what makes a great manager. And so we came up with it ourselves. We found very few other companies that do it. So I wrote a whole chapter in the book about it, including I provided the questions. It's not a secret from that.
Excellent. And then, so building off of that, so when you get all this feedback, when the manager gets all this feedback, what are the specific tools or guidance do you give them? Is it enough, like just by exposing them to reality, do they then know, all right, got it, I gotta like shift gears? Or do you give them any additional resources, coaching, guidance?
Yeah, good question. So yes and yes. So part of it is that some of it's pretty self-evident. You know, question 14, does your manager spend time with you talking about your career goals? If that person has 9 people and their average result was a 1, it means they're never having that conversation with their people. That's pretty obvious. You need to go do that. When that happens, I say to managers, you want to get a higher MEI, gee, would you just talk to your people once in a while about what their goals and ambitions are? That's like an easy one to check the box on. Others, they need more help. And so the HR business partners at our company work with all the managers around their results. And obviously we spend the most time with people who need to improve the most. And then we incorporate what we learn from that into our Courage to Lead training program and our follow-up tools around that, and try to emphasize the things that people normally don't do as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Aron. It's very powerful stuff. The last 2 like key ingredients you mentioned for creating an organization where everybody loves to work. One was safety. The other one was respecting balance, or along those lines, like making sure that you're dealing with people in a holistic way. Share with us what you would consider to be the very top best practices we should keep in mind for both of these. And then after that, we're going to dive into our audience questions.
Okay, I'll go quick. So we take really seriously our partnership with the people who work for us. And that includes making sure they're safe. So that could mean in a community where a hurricane came through, or an earthquake happened, or there was some civil disturbance, we reach out to all of those employees. Are you okay? What can we do to help? Earthquake in Mexico City, people couldn't get home. We rented 50 hotel rooms in a hotel next to our office and said, on us, we're putting you guys all there because all the mass transit is down. That's a simple example of safety. Not the only example of safety, but an example. we have people who have, life tragedies. They have a loss of a family member, or our house burned down, talking real stories, or they're in the reserves and, they get called up and they have to go away for a year. Um, we focus in all these ways uniquely to help people in those situations, to make sure that we're finding ways to keep them safe, keeping them physically safe, and looking after their mental health safe. And so we just do it because it's the right thing to do. And does it help create a more engaged environment? Sure, it does. But that's not why we do it. We do it because, so there'll be a thing where I'll get a note, hey, the floods that happened in Houston, we've contacted all our employees who work there. All of them are safe. 3 of them can't go back to their houses. We helped those 3 find hotels, et cetera, et cetera. So that's some quick examples of that, and not hard to do, by the way. Not hard to do, but we do it. The other one about respect, you said?
Well, so this one was around safety. The final one you mentioned about respecting balance, like work life, and
right,
how you create an environment that
okay,
enables
so I'll
that
go
to,
quick with that.
yeah.
Look, I tell people who work for us that if the most important thing in their life is working for our company, they have their priorities mixed up. I tell them the most important thing in their life should be their family. It's not that I don't want where they work to be important. Of course I want it to be important, but the most important thing in their life, I tell them that's silly. That's silly. And so we promote and we talk around this work-life balance. We started doing in the 80s, working moms could work from home. Imagine that. For anyone I knew was doing it as actively. 40% of our employees work from home. 40% of our employees work from home today. By the way, can't do it if we don't trust each other. Can't do it if we don't do that.
And that was pre-COVID as well, the 40%?
Pre-COVID, that's right. Yep, pre-COVID. Well, now we have 100% basically working from home. But yes, pre-COVID. For some, because good business reasons, they didn't need to be in the office. Others, because it worked out for them to do it that way, particularly with working moms. We've been doing it that way for a long time. I think the hardest single job that people have is being a working mom, from that perspective. And then, look, we also don't own people's careers, Beri. We don't own their careers. So people will come and they say, I got another offer to go somewhere else. So I'll try really, really hard to keep them. But in the end, if they want to go leave, I say, okay, I get it. But I say to them, if it didn't work out, you can come back. I said, I want you to imagine I'm like a little birdie sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear, you can come back. You can come back. Because look, people have a right to go try something new. Basic respect. But a year later, if it didn't work out and their job is open and they were really great when they worked for us, why wouldn't I take them back? What kind of knucklehead wouldn't take them back? Of course, go look on our webpage. We recruit for people who used to work for us. We have a whole section on boomerangs, we call it. Imagine that. We call them up. We say, hey, how's it going in your new job? Oh, you're not happy? We got your old thing open. Before I fill it somewhere else, what do you think? Really, could I? Sure you can. Because it's basic respect from that perspective. Because we respect that people are allowed to do something else. We don't own their careers. So I go on and on about respect.
Right.
You can see, right? You put all these things together, trust, communication, having a great manager, taking care of each other, respecting. You think that creates an engaged environment where people want to stay? Bet it does.
Absolutely. This has been amazing, Aron. Thank you for all the insights that you shared. For everybody who's joining us live, whatever questions you might have, as strategic or tactical as you want them to be, feel free to post them in the Q&A window over the next couple minutes, and we'll take them in turn. Aron, the first question is from Daniel Colton. He says, everything starts at the top though, right? Meaning the CEO's trustworthiness level determines the corporate culture. This is my addition to what Daniel asked. I also got to say, you seem like an unbelievably nice guy. Could this all work? If, the person at the top is just like a little less nice, or if that is the case, do they need to have somebody else super nice that's making sure of these things? Curious how you would respond to
Yeah,
what Daniel
I know
said.
other people who aren't as nice as me, and thanks for saying that I'm a nice guy, who get this and do this really well. Look, I'm a tough manager. I don't like, I'm a sore loser. I mean, if we're going to go try to do something, then gee whiz, let's do it great. And and if people don't do their job, then we ask them to leave. I can give you examples of that, but I agree, it does have to start at the top. If I don't practice it, which I do, if I don't live it, which I do, then it doesn't set an example. Plus, to Daniel's point, we all hire people who share our value system. So I hire people who share my values. They then hire people who share their values. So it perpetuates itself. And so it does start at the top, though, and I have to set the example. And I can give you lots of examples where I do that. And look, I have the same rules as everybody else. And so, I fly the same rules as everybody else. I get to airports sometimes and I fly so much, I used to. I get upgraded a lot, but I buy the same coach tickets as everybody else. If I see someone in the gate who works with me and I got an upgrade, I'll go up and say, I'll trade tickets with you. What do you mean? I said, well, I got a first class upgrade. You can have my seat and I'll take yours. And I go, where are you? They go, 37E. I go, ugh, shouldn't have done that today. But it's just basic, that respect and whatnot, and just setting the right example. So.
Incredible. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, Daniel, for the great question. Next question is actually, there's two questions that are related. So Aditya Sangi asks, how do you handle unionized environments where being nice is sometimes considered as being quote unquote soft? And then related to that, Don Duval says, curious if this model would be effective across organizational types and industry. For example, could you transpose your MEI tools into a unionized skilled labor workplace to improve trust and ultimately employment engagement and retention?
Of course, like who doesn't want to be trusted? Like because it's a union place, those union guys don't want to be trusted, or they don't want to have a great manager? I believe it translates easily. And maybe even more importantly there, because maybe it's less typical there and you can use it to differentiate yourself. So that's conceivable to me that it might work that way because of that. So look, I believe this applies to all industries. We have like call centers where people have to be there. So I can't have everybody take vacation at the same time. I didn't tell you that part of it. It's an open vacation policy, but people have to get approval before they can all go. We just don't keep track of it the same way we only have a certain number of days a year, the way you do it. So we do it in places where we have to have coverage. We have to have coverage. If you plan for it, you can do it. So yes, I believe that this applies to just about everything. And there's examples, by the way, where great retailers are different than retailers who are not as effective in this area, and the results are amazing. There's examples with airlines where some airlines drive a culture that focuses on this and some don't do it as much. And the results, you can see it when you're on their planes, how people feel about it and how they treat you and how they act and whatnot. Yeah.
Excellent. Great examples. Thank you so much, Aaron. Next question is from Isabel Moore. She says, Aaron, you share how you walk the talk and create a high performance culture in your own organization and not just teach it to others. Do you accept or decline clients based on how the executive board is able to be conscious of themselves?
Well, I don't always know when we are in the process of accepting or declining clients, where they are in those areas. We don't always get to interact at that level. So look, I try not to go judge the people who are our clients. Whether they're manufacturers or retailers or healthcare or logistics or public sector, try not to go judge them and judge that in that way. But I do talk about these things about why they should do business with us. And I know, because I've seen examples where it's rubbed off on them and people say, well, we learned from your talk, we brought it back to our company and we practice it there as well. So less focused on whether I decline or accept business based on that, I don't, but more focused, I guess, on trying to make them be better the way we try to stay focused on this, because we talk about it. We tell them that we're going to be a great partner to you because we have an engaged workforce, and an engaged workforce is going to deliver better products and better service.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Next one is from Chris Monroe. He asks, how do you drive this approach into a front-end hiring filter process to reduce hiring failures?
Yeah, really good question. You know, what's funny about our hiring thing, you know, we've won these awards as a great place to work all over the world. Every country we do business, we're rated a great place to work. Glassdoor, Fortune magazine, great place to work for all. And so let me answer the question this way, perhaps. When I come into the office and I see someone sitting in the lobby, I can always tell the people who are there for an interview. They're like overdressed and they're acting really nervous. So I'll walk up to them and I'll say, hey, you being helped? And I know they're being helped because the people there who are the receptionists or help everybody who comes in. And so I call this premeditated spontaneity. I'm acting like I'm being spontaneous, but it's very premeditated what I'm going to do. And they go, yes. And I go, oh, what are you here for? And they have no idea who I am. And they go, oh, I'm here for an interview. I go, oh, no kidding. What kind of job? And they go, oh, IT, finance, sales, support, engineering, marketing. It could be anything. And I go, oh, where do you work now? And they tell me, and they're probably saying, why is this guy asking me all these questions? And I say, I'm just curious, like, why are you interested in working here, an interview here? They say, because it's a great place to work. And now comes my, moment. And I go, how do you know that? You've never worked here. And they go, because I read about it on Glassdoor. I read about it in the Boston Globe. I read about it on Great Place to Work. So before we even start interviewing the person, we put ourselves in an advantage because they have a view that we're a great place to work and they want to be here. That gives us an advantage to hire the best people because the best people are coming to us, and then we have the proof to back it up. And it allows us to get a better pool of candidates who may come work for us.
Excellent. What a competitive advantage, right?
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Aaron. Next question is from George Retsas. He asks and says, thank you for sharing the way you think and operate. It's very clear that you love your people and you treat everyone with the utmost respect. We talked a lot about people. However, I'd like to know if there are any other elements of the organization that you spend this much time on and laser focus on improving.
You mean this part? You mean any particular parts of the organization where I'm spending more of this time on than other parts of the organization?
The way I interpret this question is, it sounds like, just hearing you today, it sounds like you spend a lot of your time on the people aspect of things. George is asking, is there any other parts of the organization?
I see. I'm sorry.
To make sure that it's as successful as it is.
Okay, so I think I got it. So look, I spend probably 30 to 40% of my time on customer-facing activities, pursuit of opportunities, loving our current customers, looking after them. Salespeople know that I like to go talk to the customers or the prospects, and they're dragging me in all the time, all over the world. To do that. So I spend a lot of time there. I spend probably another third of my time on focused on working to make sure that we have great products, that we're meeting our needs from that perspective. Spend a whole bunch of my time just in general administrative tasks that I need to do. But all the things I talk about, I'm doing those with every one of those other functions. So I don't spend time specifically on just manager effectiveness or just trust or those type of things. I do it based on, I do it with all those other opportunities as part of those things, if that's what you mean.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. That was very valuable. Next one is from Michael Viazzoli. The question is, do you have any advice on assessing team health more broadly?
Yeah, so we do. And so we do our culture surveys, our engagement surveys, and we know within certain groups, right down to individual managers, how employees are thinking about their engagement with the organization. You know, sometimes the MEI is misleading or it's incomplete because what it does is it doesn't always tell you, a manager might be off balance with a particular employee, but they still might have a good MEI, but it doesn't always mean that the culture of their group, the engagement of that overall team, because there may be team dynamics that are cross-functional. And so we're assessing all the time. We're doing these culture surveys 3 times a year at least, and understanding internal culture surveys. And then we measure them, and we measure how it was in relationship to prior periods, and we share that with the managers, and we encourage the managers, you need to go talk to your teams about these results around this. And so very important to us. You can't improve what you don't measure. And then, you know why we get such honest feedback, employees tell us? Because they watch how we follow up. So we get like over 90% participation in employee engagement surveys. Unbelievable. And people say, I do them because I see that we get the results. We see that you're listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron, for that. So tell us just a little bit more about specifically the book that you wrote, because, you know, obviously I'm super curious about like the specifics, what's in that MEI survey and so forth. What else can we hope to find there in terms of like critical action items or the frameworks that you've synthesized?
Right. So I don't like business books. I'm not really a good business book reader. So I took inventory of why I didn't like them when I was thinking about writing this, and because I never quite make it through them. So I wrote it so that each chapter stands on its own. So I wrote it so you can pick up the book, look in the table of contents, say, oh, trust, what does that mean? And read that chapter. Each chapter is a pretty easy read. It's like 15, 20 minutes to read it, that whole chapter. And then you can go pick another one and read that, and it stands on its own. So that's something I tried to focus on from that perspective. If you're asking me other chapters that I think were, you know, some of my other favorite ones about, I think companies need a strategy. And I think great employees, engaged employees want to know what the strategy is. So what are we doing on an everyday basis to make sure that we come up with a strategy? And then most importantly, communicate the strategy to our people. So there's a whole part about that I think is interesting. Always focused on trying to put ourselves out of business, doing things that are going to reinvent ourselves. So there's a whole section on things we do every day to go and disrupt ourselves. Engaged people want to know that you're doing things that are cutting edge and taking, you know, steps forward. We're really into a whole area of training the next generation that I didn't talk about. So we have interns running around, co-op students running around all over the place all the time. And so I believe deeply that it's our obligation to train the next generation. And about 20% of them end up coming to work for us. But I don't do it because I want them to come work for us. I do it because I want to fill my obligation to teach people what it's like to work in a real environment like this. And so that's a lot of fun. The groups that have a lot of interns, a lot of fun. Those groups have a whole different energy. So those are just some other ones.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for, you know, crystallizing all these lessons and making them so actionable. I love the 15-minute per chapter approach. So what I'd love to do is I've got one final question for you to help us wrap up this awesome conversation. So while we were speaking, you know, 99% of the stuff was all about, you know, how do you really elevate your people? But then you did mention, right, like you're also a tough manager. You're a tough performer. I mean, we're talking about, you know, $3 billion revenue company, 12,000, and you've been there for decades. So in every division and role. So it's been a great reminder across the board, this whole conversation on like how you can really do this like super empowering, thoughtful stuff that's really good for business while also performing very strongly on the traditional metrics. So with all of that in mind, would love to, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. And secondly, ask you, how can we best support you and your goals, like your vision, whether it's with this book or more broadly around the world? What is like most top of mind for you these days, and how can we as a community best support you? And at the end of that, if you have a final word of wisdom for us, we'd love to hear that too.
Okay, thanks. Wow, so that is a really relevant question on my mind right now, and let me talk about that because this is something I've been talking about recently. This has been a tough last 12 months, and from COVID to pandemic to working from home to all the social justice issues to a divided country in the US, et cetera. And I believe that what's been happening, unfortunately, that in many cases, leadership has created a tremendous void by not leading. Our elected officials, our non-governmental agency officials, I just don't think are doing enough in a period when we need it more than ever. And as a CEO myself, and as leaders, people who are on the call, I think we all have an obligation right now more than ever, to go lead and to provide direction and to provide comfort, quite frankly, and to give guidance. Because this void that's been created by a lack of effective leadership, human nature hates a void. And it will fill a void with lots of things that will drift into people's imagination. And so, what are we going to do? What am I going to do as a leader every single day to make sure that I'm filling that void by being the leader that I need to be and understand and take my responsibility as the CEO really seriously? So what does that mean for our listeners? Almost all of you are managers and leaders. Some of you own your own businesses. What are you going to do to fill that void? How are you going to make a difference? Make a difference with the people who work for you right now more than ever. More than ever. I wake up every morning right now, seriously, wake up every morning thinking, how am I going to take care of the 12,800 people who work for me? How am I going to protect their families? I made a commitment in March when all this happened that I was going to work super duper, duper, duper hard. No cut in pay, no reductions, no layoffs, no cut in benefits, no furloughs. But I told people I want to do that, but you need to help me. We need to protect our balance sheet. We need to have the resources to be able to do that. So I go to bed. I wake up every morning thinking, how am I going to do today to go do that? I go to bed every night. How did I do in terms of meeting that objective? And I think all of us as leaders right now, more than ever, have an opportunity to go do something about that. So what are you going to do? You, all the people who joined for this, all the people who are listening, what are you going to do that's going to make a difference for the people who work for you? Not to mention our communities, but if we make a difference for the people who work for us, then everybody makes a difference for the communities they're in. Being a leader is not a spectator sport. If it was a spectator sport, they'd give us a camera or a pair of binoculars or something to enjoy the view, but we don't get those things. Want to be a great leader? Then act like a great leader. And it's more important today than ever before. Just look at what happened yesterday in Washington. It's more important today than ever before. So I encourage you, please go take advantage of that privilege you have to lead people.
That was so beautifully and so powerfully said, Aron. It's been a real privilege to get to learn from you, to be galvanized by you, to be inspired by you, and also to be given specific tools by you to go and make that change. So thank you for, again, the call to action to fill the void. We're very grateful and hope to see you again very, very soon.
Okay, appreciate it. Honored to have met you and spent the time together, and thanks for everyone who listened, okay?
Absolutely, Aron. All the best to you. Take care, and thank you everybody for joining us. See you all again very soon. Take care, Aron.
Okay, bye.